up your first one and you drink it, and that's the need that it satisfies. That's a very highly valued end, because if you don't drink water, you die eventually, I guess. The second bottle of water that you consume, you pick it up and it satisfies a less pressing need, a less urgent need. So after you've satisfied your need to quench your thirst, the next pressing need is, refreshment. You're no longer really thirsty, but you want to be refreshed. So you drink the second bottle of water. Fantastic. And then you've got the third bottle of water in the stock. And you pick that up and you drink it. And the reason why you've drunk that bottle, drank, you know. Once you consume that bottle of water, it satisfies the third most pressing end that you would have, or the third most highly valued end that you have. So maybe you just like the flavor of water, the taste of it, or it's gluten-free and you're on a diet, and that's why you're consuming it. And then as you continue going down through your stock of goods, the stock of good, each subsequent unit that you use serves a less valuable, a less urgent need than the one before it. And so the value as you go down the units of goods has to become lesser and lesser and lesser, or in other words, diminish. Finally, when you get to the fourth bottle of water, it's like, you're socially awkward and you're just looking for something to bide your time while you're talking to people. And it doesn't go away as you get older. It's just the drink changes, I guess. And so the two of these laws taken together are how Austrian economists talk about the utility that we get from consuming different goods. And then you can put this in the context of changing the size of the stock of goods you have available to you. So in my example, I had 4 bottles of water. What would happen if I added a 5th bottle of water to it? Well, first of all, from the first law of utility, I know that I would be happier or more satisfied than I would be if I only had 4 bottles of water. The reason why is because that new 5th bottle would be able, or would allow me to satisfy a new need, a new want, and so once that want is satisfied, I'd be happier than I was before. So maybe the 5th bottle of water, now I'm not thirsty, and I'm refreshed, and I've got my tool against social awkwardness, and now I'm looking at just giving it to a friend and helping somebody out, or charity, or something like that. And that's less important to me than the other 4 needs, but it's something, so I'm happier as a result. Of course, the change in my happiness is what diminishing marginal utility is telling us. So my change in happiness from having that 5th bottle will be a little bit less than it was from each of the preceding 4 bottles, but it's still positive, it's still something. And as I keep adding stocks, units of water, bottles of water to my stock of water, my utility will continue increasing, I'll be happier, but at a diminishing rate. Each subsequent unit will make me less happier than the one before it. So we use utility to measure the usefulness, or to describe the usefulness that a good has in satisfying your wants, and utility abides by these 2 rules, or there are 2 laws that we can always depend on. So what do we do with it? Well, in Austrian economics, we use what we call a value scale to describe the goods that we have and how useful they are to us. And the value scale has a couple not oddities, particulars to it that are important. So the first is, as you go down here, I've ranked these first, second, third, ... so on and so forth, 10th, 11th, 12th if I had room. And what that means is that at the very top of the scale is my first most valued end, my first most valued thing that I would like to do, or action. And then as I go down the scale, this is my second most valued activity or action, my third most valuable, and blah, blah, blah. So, for example, in this hour of time, your most highly valued use of this hour of time is attending this lecture. And I'm not making that up because you've demonstrated it to me through your demonstrated preference of showing up here. There was many things that you could have done during this hour of time, or this 45 minutes, but you showed up, so thank you, by the way. Because instead of showing up for this lecture, you could have pursued your second most valued end, which was sleeping for an extra hour. Fantastic. Or you could have eaten even more breakfast, great, I guess. Or ... down the list. And I guess as you get down your list, eventually you get to, could have chatted it up with Professor Salerno for an hour, but you came here and listened to me instead, so that's great. I know you valued this more. But Joe should feel good about himself, because at least that's above talking to David Gordon. Where is Dr. Gordon? Is he here? He's not. So obviously on his value scale, his other activities are above attending this lecture, so I guess he got the final laugh on me. But we have this value scale where we go down, and there's a couple, like I said, there was a couple oddities or particulars that we wanted to talk about with this value scale. And the first is that it's a value ranking. It's like a race. The 100-meter dash, or the Americans call it 100-meter dash, or is it like the 90-yard dash, something like that? The 100-meter dash. We've got a first, second, third, and ... place winner, or losers, I guess, as the place may be. I didn't mean to circle David Gordon when I said loser. And in the race, we don't really care that the first place person, we don't say that they were, they ran that race twice as well as the person in second, or, we don't say that they ran the race 5 times better than the person in fifth, or anything like that. The person came first. It's a qualitative statement. We know they did better than the person who came in second, and we know the person who came in second in the race did better than the person who came in third, and so on and so forth. So we have a qualitative ranking, and we can't really compare quantitatively these different rankings. So we can't say that you value attending this lecture twice as much as you value an extra hour of sleep, even though attending the lecture was your first place option, your first place alternative, or most highly valued alternative, and sleep was only the second. There's no quantitative comparison that we can actually make. Also, using the previous laws of utility, as we go down this value scale, we not only know that these will be less valuable uses of your time or less valuable actions that you could pursue, we know that if you did these things, they would make you happier, but at a diminishing rate. That's the law of diminishing utility. So let's say you attend this lecture, first of all. Fantastic. You make yourself happier for it, hopefully. And then you decide to sleep for an extra hour. Okay, the extra hour of sleep would make you happier as well, but it would make you less happy than attending this lecture. So you'll be better off, but by a little bit less than just attending this lecture did. And then eating will also improve your lot. You'll be better off for it, but less than that extra hour of sleep increased your satisfaction or utility by, and so on and so forth. And then, of course, you get down to Joe Salerno, and talking to Joe for an hour is great, but it's obviously not increasing your lot as much as eating for an hour, sleeping for an hour, attending this lecture for an hour. And now Joe's not on speaking terms with me, so I don't have to worry. I can strike this off my preference scale. And of course, we don't just have to have activities on our value scale. We can put all sorts of economic goods on it. So for example, money. Now, Rothbard in Man, Economy, and State, I've used some notation that he makes use of. The hamburger is in parenthesis because it's something that you don't have. It's something that you can imagine yourself having, and you can imagine where it would fit into this value scale relative to the things that you do have, which in this case, or in this example, are money, since those are not in parentheses. So in this particular value scale, you would first prefer to have $5 in your pocket. Then you would prefer to have one hamburger, your first hamburger that you're going to eat. And then you would prefer to have $4 in your pocket, $3, and then you would prefer to have a second, and so on and so forth. Actually, I'll give you an example. I went out for breakfast this morning. Don't judge me. I went to McDonald's. And there's no interpersonal comparisons of utility, so you can never judge people for these things. I went to McDonald's because they have Egg McMuffins, and where I come from, they don't have Egg McMuffins. I don't know. It's the small things in life. And so I went there, and they had a deal, it was like 2 for $3 or something. I don't know if you saw that. It was a great deal. So I bought 2 Egg McMuffins, and then I went back. I paid I valued them more than the money that I had available to me, and I bought 2 of them. And I ate my first Egg McMuffin, and it was fantastic, to be honest with you. And then I was sizing up the second one. With each bite, actually, it got a little bit less fantastic. Like, the first bite was really great, and you can imagine why that is through diminishing marginal utility, because, of course, the first bite, I was breaking my fast for the morning, so that's fantastic. And then the second bite is like, oh, it tastes so good. And the third bite, so on and so forth. And then I finished off the whole thing, and a whole series of wants had been satisfied, and then I sized up the second one, and it looked pretty disgusting. And I was, oh, why? And I still ate it because it was better than the alternatives that I was going to do. Oh no, are we going to get cut off here?
No, the
Battery's too high.
Plug it. No, don't do that. Just click on the reminder.
How do you? Where's my mouse? Escape? No, enter.
Yeah, check out that box.
And
Mouse was moving a second ago.
it was. Where do you? Perfect. And now you all know my tech abilities. And that was the highlight of the lecture, so. And I had some regret for buying, to get back to my Big Mac experience, my Egg McMuffin experience. I had some regret after the fact. You know, you buy things and you have regret. And regret is a good example of the non-constancy of your values. Like when I bought these Egg McMuffins, not even 10 minutes prior, I valued the two of them more than I valued my money. And then after I ate the first, I had these pinches of regret. I was like, oh, what's it going to look like when I get to the beach? And oh, my wife's going to yell at me and things like that. And I in a way, wish that I didn't buy two. I still ate it. So actually, I'm lying to you that I wish I didn't buy two because I still ate it. I demonstrated to myself that I did value that second one. But my value scale had changed, and my eyes were bigger than my stomach, I guess, at the moment when I bought it. And of course, I valued two very highly because I was very hungry. But then once I got through my one Egg McMuffin, my value scale changed, and all of a sudden, having something to alleviate hunger was not so important to me. And so I changed my mind. Now, I don't want to go into this in too much depth because Professor Herbener will look at this when he gives a lecture on time preference, but we can also place different goods or want satisfactions on this value scale in different intertemporal periods, or different temporal periods, I should say. So for example, you could value having $10 in your pocket right now more than you would value having $10 in your pocket 1 year from now. And Professor Herbener will explain why it is that this relationship of valuing $10 more now than in the future has to hold true. And then we can go down our value scale in the standard way of all the different things that we would rather have. Of course, $10 now, $10 in a year, $9 now is better than $8 now, and so on and so forth. But maybe $8 right now is preferable to having $10 2 years from now for whatever reason. So now we can start looking at intertemporal values. I'm, like I say, not going to go into too much detail with it. Actually, that's all the detail I'm going to go into with it, so that I don't steal Professor Herbener's thunder. Now, the values and the value scale is important, but what happens if you have things on your value scale that you think other people would like more than you do, or would satisfy other people's wants more than they satisfy yours, and you see that other people have things or goods that would satisfy wants that you have, and they're also goods that you don't have, so you need to obtain them. Well, in other words, to obtain happiness in life, or to increase your satisfaction as much as you can, we partake in exchanges. And exchanges happen in many different forms. Some of them are permanent, and some of them are temporary. So, for example, I bought my 2 Egg McMuffins this morning, and that was a thoroughly permanent exchange, because I don't really think McDonald's wants me to go back and reverse the transaction. And some exchanges are temporary, so these are like loans. I'll give you something and you'll give me something back, and then we'll just exchange it again in the future, so they're temporary exchanges that we could partake in. In my lecture later on financial markets, I'll get into some of the details associated with temporary exchanges. And for an exchange to take place, we need economic goods, so we need to have things that abide by the criteria that Carl Menger laid out. We need to exchange goods, or goods are the only things that we can exchange. We need a clearly defined set of property rights. We need to know what goods we own in order to trade with somebody else, and we need to know what goods somebody else owns that we know that we can obtain from them to increase our happiness. So some system of property rights, and hopefully a pretty well-defined one, will allow us to actually make exchanges. And then finally, and most importantly, we need what are called reverse preferences.